In the spring of 1981, in a remote mountain resort in California, 4 people were brutally murdered in their sleep. The killers used hammers, they used knives, they used their bare hands, and they never forced their way in. The door was unlocked. 40 years later, no one has ever been convicted. The case remains open. This is the story of the Keddie Cabin Murders. Keddie was a tiny community in Plumas County, California. Fewer than 100 people lived there year-round. It was the kind of place where people didn't lock their doors. Sue Sharp was a 36-year-old single mother. She lived in Cabin 28 of the Keddie Resort with her 5 children: Sheila, John, Tina, Rick, and Greg. On the night of April 11th, 1981, Sue's oldest daughter, Sheila, went to sleep over at a neighbor's cabin. That decision saved her life. The next morning, 14-year-old Sheila walked back home. She opened the door, and she found something no child should ever see. Her mother, Sue, was lying on the floor near the couch. She was bound with electrical tape, gagged with her own underwear. Her throat had been slashed so deep it nicked her spine. Beside her was her 15-year-old brother, John. He had been beaten with a hammer, stabbed multiple times. His throat was cut. Next to John was his friend, Dana Wingate, 17 years old. He had been beaten so severely that his skull was fractured, then strangled to death. The murder weapons were still there. 2 bloody kitchen knives, one of them bent from the force of the stabbing, a claw hammer caked with blood and hair. But the horror didn't end there. When police searched the cabin, they found 2 of Sue's younger sons, Rick and Greg, ages 10 and 5, hiding in an adjacent bedroom. They were alive, unharmed. They said they slept through everything, but there was someone missing. Tina Sharp, 12 years old. Sue's youngest daughter. She wasn't in the cabin. She wasn't hiding. She was gone. The killers had taken her. For 3 years, Tina Sharp was listed as missing. Then, in April 1984, a hiker found something in a remote area called Camp 18, nearly 60 miles from Keddie. A human skull and scattered bones. Before the medical examiner could even begin identification, the police received an anonymous phone call. A man's voice said, "I know whose skull that is. It's Tina Sharp." Dental records confirmed it. The caller was right. Police were never able to trace that call. They don't know who made it or how he knew. Investigators immediately noticed something disturbing about the crime scene. There was no sign of forced entry. The door was unlocked. The phone was off the hook. The lights were off. The curtains were drawn. Whoever did this had either been let in or already had access to the cabin. Suspicion quickly fell on 2 men. Martin Smart, a neighbor whose son was friend with the Sharp children, and John Bubid, Martin's friend who was staying with him at the time. Martin's wife would later claim that he confessed to her. She said he told her he had taken care of Sue, but there was never enough evidence for an arrest. Both men are now dead. They were never charged. In 2016, investigators made a breakthrough. They found a hammer submerged in a pond near the crime scene. It had been there for 35 years. More importantly, they extracted DNA from a piece of medical tape used to bind the victims. The DNA matched a living suspect, someone who had been on the radar since the beginning. But even with this evidence, prosecutors have not filed charges. The case officially remains unsolved. The surviving children, now adults, have spent their entire lives waiting for justice. It has never come. If you don't believe this story, search for it yourself. Google Keddie Cabin Murders 1981, and you'll find crime scene photos, police reports, and decades of investigation. Every detail I just told you is documented. This really happened. And here's what makes it truly terrifying. There was no forced entry. The door was unlocked. Whoever killed Sue Sharp and her children walked right in. Maybe they were invited. Maybe the door was simply open. Either way, the killers have never been caught. For all we know, they're still out there. So tonight, before you go to sleep, ask yourself one question. Did you lock your door?